Hey, Michael, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Don?
Good, good. I'm glad that we finally got this done. We've been talking about you joining our podcast for a long time, and fortunately, our calendars have finally worked their way, where we're compatible. We got you in. You probably had to leave the office, about 30 minutes ago?
Well, I had to plan for traffic, so I left 50 minutes ago, and I still was a little late. Yeah.
Yeah. When we talk about the traffic of LA, you always have to factor in at least another 30 minutes, I think, right? And where was your office?
I was working out of Claremont today.
Yeah, because you have an office in Pasadena and Claremont.
Correct.
Right? Okay. Well, before we get into the nitty gritty of your testimony today, let's introduce you to our audience, okay? So I've known Michael for many, many years. He's a trusted financial advisor. He's a portfolio manager. And the reason why we want him to join us today, and we're just excited to have him, is because of the fact that now is the time where people really have a lot of questions about their finances. And, are we doing the right thing to our portfolios? Are we making the right decisions in light of the current economic circumstances? So Michael's a senior vice president, financial advisor, and portfolio manager in D.A. Davidson's Pasadena and Claremont wealth management offices. He's got over 2 decades of industry experience, and he brings a life mission planning mentality to his clients and his families. He prides himself on understanding the needs and aspirations of his clients and constructing plans to help them achieve their goals through ongoing education, discipline, and patience. I think people need to know really who you are, though, because I want to put a real face to you, and that is that Michael lives in Laverne with his wife, Alicia, a former high school teacher and University of Laverne alumnus. So the two of you met in college, it looks like. Or
Right after college.
Right after college,
Yep.
Okay. And most importantly, the two of you have 3 children, and they keep you very active in the community. I know you and I have talked before, but you definitely have not sacrificed your family life in spite of the fact that you're very successful in your career, because you take time off of your kids and you make sure that part of your life is taken care of. How are the kids doing?
Doing well. We're in soccer season right now, which fills my tank. I played soccer since I was 5 years old, and I played in high school and college and traveled to Europe to play soccer when I was younger. So when, there's soccer practice, I love it. I'm there. We're there at the soccer field 7 days a week.
I didn't know that you were that much of a soccer player. I know that when we spoke about this before, that you played in college.
Mm-hmm.
You even went to Europe. Where did you go to play?
So my college, I went to University of Laverne, graduated from there, and played soccer for the 3 years that I went there before graduating. When I was 14, I was selected on a soccer team that traveled to Europe, and we were coached by the Dutch National Football Association, which was a wonderful experience. Played in tournaments in Italy and Austria.
Oh my God, we're gonna have to talk about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll bring you back and we'll talk about you playing in Italy, because I just got back from Italy. I just got back from a really nice vacation. I love the country, and since you spent so much time there, you could even educate me and everybody else more about what we didn't see when we were there. Anyways, let's talk about some of the things that are going on right now. As we sit here today, interest rates are climbing, right? Gas prices are outrageously high. We got a war going on in Ukraine that's impacting the whole globe. And wages aren't necessarily keeping up with the inflation. There's just a lot going on out there. And, in my profession, I'm dealing with people that are in a lot of stress, a lot of financial stress, emotional stress. A lot of my clients and former clients probably will appreciate this podcast, hearing from you with respect to, are they making the right decisions in light of what's going on? What should they be considering as we navigate through the economic times? So one thing that I learned, I went to an economic summit about maybe a week ago, and I learned that we're not in a recession right now. Is that your feeling too?
Well, technically, we're not in a recession.
But we're headed for one, possibly.
It appears that way.
Yeah.
There are some people that think we are in a recession right now. Technically, you have to be in a recession after a group of people come together
And say we're in one.
and say that we're in one.
Okay.
So, it feels the stress that people are feeling. I mean, you could theoretically say that it feels like a recession.
Yeah.
So I think it comes down to how people are feeling at home.
Yeah.
And that stress, whether it's, the emotional stress or the financial stress, I think that plays a lot into some of the decisions that we ultimately make with our money. And, money to me is really just a utility. It's a utility that we have available to utilize for whatever our life's mission or our life's purpose is, whether that's taking care of our family. We may have children that have special needs. There's an element of planning different for a person who has special needs in your family than if they didn't, right? And so that money being used as utility for the life planning for that child or that adult person that ends up growing up with those special circumstances, those are the reasons why we put planning in place, or retiring at a particular age comfortably and continuing to live the lifestyle that you want to live. Money is used as a utility to continue to keep that ongoing. Okay. There's a whole host of things.
So in light of that, I mean, you're talking like when we met last time about the importance of planning and making sound decisions. Does that process change at all in light of whether we're in a recession now or we're about to get into a recession, or is planning the same? I mean, how is it different or what?
So it may change. So if we looked at the different types of individuals that we're working with, you might be able to divide them up into 3 categories, or, based off of age: 0 to 30, 30 to 60, and 60 to 90, or end of life. The planning that you would do for somebody at the early part of their life, 0 to 30, may be different than the person that you're planning for at the end of their life, 60 to 90 or 60 to the end of their life. So whether you're headed into a recession or you have high inflation or you have higher interest rates, the planning between these 3 categories based off of just age, simply age, may change. And that's okay for it to change. The wholesale changes of abandoning a financial plan, when I've seen this in my experience, is where people get into real trouble. It's the tweaks, it's the working around the edges that can enhance one's financial plan when there are interruptions or dislocations in the economic, the economy or in the financial markets.
I've heard so many people talk about, once upon a time I had a financial planner and I was doing okay, and then we ran into some rough times and I just stopped doing it and I pulled out, and I started doing my own thing, and consequently I have nothing left over. So that's kind of what you're talking about. Maybe during these times stay on course with somebody like you and allow the professionals to make adjustments, but not abandon a plan, I presume, right?
Yeah, and I think the client, the person that we're working with, and just like you're having a good relationship and being able to communicate openly with full disclosure and transparency with the advisor and vice versa with the client is paramount. If a client feels uncomfortable contacting the advisor to share the stressors that are happening in their life, then the plan was there's a chance that it could fail. So what I find is you need to be accessible as an advisor, because people are depending on you. They want to bend your ear. They may not do anything, but they just want to hear about your thoughts about things, right? And be reminded of why they had the financial plan in the first place. I find that for me personally, when I'm having a conversation with a client about their financial plan, I believe so much in it that I have my own financial plan. So I eat my own cooking. Oftentimes, we may hire an advisor, whether that's a real estate person or an accountant or even a legal advisor, but they're not eating their own cooking. They're not actually doing the things that they're advising their clients to do for themselves.
That would be a good indicator. I think a lot of times you don't know, I think, right? I mean, if I were to walk into a financial planner's office and sit across the desk, I wouldn't know if they're eating their own cooking or not, right? I mean, but for your point of view, I mean, it's like, why wouldn't you consider that as being a very significant thing, right? I mean, so do you think that when you're talking to a financial planner, kind of asking
Absolutely.
Some questions?
I think it's a two-way street.
Okay.
I think that as much as the advisor is looking to, get a profile of that particular client, or at least they should be, gathering information that would be beneficial to providing advice, the client on the other side of the table should also be looking at gathering information about that advisor, whether it's a financial advisor, a real estate advisor, whatever, and asking the appropriate questions so that they can sense whether this person is actually doing this in their own life too.
Yeah, you would think that if you're mismanaging your own personal finances, then you're probably
Right.
You're
Right.
probably not qualified to handle somebody else's or make decisions or even give advice about that. Wow. So I was looking at, there's some things that are in the market right now, and I'm just wondering how it plays into your financial planning. And obviously, you're not giving advice to anybody right now, and we're just going to be talking very, very generally. But with regard to the real estate market, it looks like now it might be a buyer's market is what I'm hearing out there. You've got, the Ukraine war. We talked about that a little bit and how that might be impacting inflation and stuff. Can you just talk about what the scuttle is among the professionals about the state of things right now? And let's start off with the real estate market as it is.
Sure. So a year ago, interest rates were sub 3. You could get a 30-year mortgage for a good borrower, credit-worthy borrower, under 3%. Today, the news headlines hit today that Freddie Mac came out with a 30-year mortgage, hit 7% today.
Oh boy, here we go.
Right. So interest rates have climbed dramatically. So the cost of borrowing is more expensive, clearly. So buying a home at the same value that you did a year ago is just going to cost you, that much more. That plays into the whole budgeting idea, right? And doing a financial plan and making sure that what you're tying yourself into, if it is a 30-year mortgage, if you're intending on buying a house, that's something that you can continue to afford long term, assuming that rate doesn't change.
So Michael, as we're sitting here, I'm thinking that, the young person who wants to get into the real estate market is damned if she does and damned if she doesn't. I
Right.
mean, in some respect, okay, it's the buyer's market, so prices are coming down a little bit, or they're at least not growing the way they are. I've got some money saved up. I want to buy a house. However, now that the interest rates are so darn high,
Right.
How do you feel about young people, purchasing their first home, as part of their investment plan right now, going in, or do you even look at it as an investment plan or a financial plan?
Sure. Absolutely. Generally, your home is typically your largest investment. So it's for savings. You go to the bank, you borrow money, you buy a house, and every month you're paying that mortgage. It's forcing you to save by paying back that debt long term. So that's the way I look at it. And in fact, some people have sort of this disdain about debt. I understand why. Then there's other people that look at debt as a financial tool. And I understand that as well. To me, I look at debt as a financial tool for younger individuals that can continue to withstand owning that debt and holding that debt. But that forced savings, that mortgage, allows them to continue to build equity, paying down the mortgage, in addition to wait for the appreciation in the home. So I think buying a home is a wonderful investment. It typically is, again, the largest investment for most individuals. And then you have the ability in the future to decide what you want to do, whether you want to sell that home and move into a different home or hold on to it forever. And there's a whole host of things that you can do. And then, obviously, if you're looking to raise a family, having a home is, second to none, right? I mean,
Right.
that's where you want to be. From the standpoint of beyond a primary residence, I like, investment properties as well, but the numbers have to make sense because now you're getting tenants and the interest rates are going to be a little bit higher because it's investment property. But the cash flow that you can generate from investment property is definitely something that would benefit, people over time as well. It's just a supplement to their retirement income in the future. And I see a lot of that with financial plans that I do for a lot of my clients. They may have a primary residence, but they may have the one or two other investment properties that they've held for a long time. And it's it's almost like they're generating their own personal pension from the cash flow that they're generating from those properties. So is it a good time? That's to be determined. Just it's based off of what that person's circumstances are at that given time.
Okay.
I think that where interest rates are headed, or they've gone, and it appears that prices are now starting to come down and there's a softening in the real estate market. If somebody's interested in looking at buying a place that they don't necessarily own one right now, I think it would be a great time to start sharpening the pencil and looking at opportunities.
Okay. I'm glad that you know so much about this. It kind of corroborates what I heard at the economic summit that I was at the Chamber of Commerce last week, where the expert talked about interest rates may not be going up substantially more. It might be topping off because they're seeing prices stabilizing, and the whole purpose of that is to stabilize prices and to keep the inflation, from skyrocketing any further. So if somebody knows that and they're looking at the real estate market, maybe it's a time to look and, like you said, sharpen your pencil.
Yeah.
So, in my practice, I deal with divorces, and there are a lot of people that are starting life again. Their dream didn't come true. The family broke up. They may be walking away with some money, maybe some property, and they come to you, and they have no knowledge at all because the other spouse had taken care of all the finances. What's the first thing you're going to tell somebody like that as they turn their life over to you and they say, "Look, can you help me? I want to be able to do the best I can with what I have coming out of this divorce."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is obviously need to build some rapport and learn a little bit about that person's goals, their objectives. Like, things may have changed. There's been an adjustment in their life, and we see this a lot when we're doing financial plans for individuals that do have some adjustments that have been made in their lives. So to regroup and sort of gather that information that can be utilized to provide appropriate advice for that individual. They may have had a goal of A, but now that the adjustment has happened, perhaps they need to adjust those goals. And with the help of a financial plan and having a written plan that can be reviewed on a regular basis every year, every couple of years, it's good to reflect and remind that individual, this is why we put this plan in place. This is where you're going. This is the objective of the plan. That way, when there are these stressors of uncertainty in the capital markets, they can, maybe go to bed at night realizing, hey, I have a plan in place. It provides them some peace of mind.
Yeah.
Everybody's situation is going to be slightly different. There are those sort of common principles, if you will. Living below your means is probably a very common principle that people should be enacting. These are things that we would want to put down in a financial plan, making sure that they're not going to outlive the resources that they have.
Good. Well, it looks to me like you're the type of person that my clients would like to meet with. They should. The problem that I have, I got to tell you, is that when I recommend an expert to my clients, they always think that I'm getting paid out of the back end or something, which is absolutely unethical. I would never do anything like that. But I do think that people coming out of a divorce, if they're not experts themselves, and rarely are they experts, they should be talking to somebody like you. You were telling me, I think the last time we met, that there should be a stress test done with every plan. And, that's a fancy name for what? Stress test.
Yeah. So right now we're in a bear market. Everybody's talking about it. You turn on Fox Business, CNBC, you open up the Wall Street Journal. That's what everybody is talking about right now. Bear market. What essentially that means is that the stock market has fallen by 20%. And that's where we're at. And some of the tech-heavy indexes, like the NASDAQ, have even gone down more than that. Now, some of it there's been some recovery, but it still's down a lot, double-digit declines. A stress test is essentially a way for us to take a look at the current plan, take a financial snapshot of the plan, which includes their portfolio, their needs, which includes the cash flow that they're generating from all of their resources, and essentially run that through a stress test, meaning looking back at certain periods of time where the market has declined, like the Lehman Brothers crash, or looking at 9/11, and seeing what that portfolio did during that period of time. So it's a backdating of looking at periods of time where we've had these dislocations, these bear markets, and to at least then begin to show the client, okay, here's your portfolio today. If we experienced another Lehman event or another 9/11, and there's a whole host of other things, right, we can look at. But if we experience those events again, here's what we can anticipate. Now, it's not entirely exact because there are certain positions that have come on scene, right? There are new stocks, there are new companies that are traded in the public markets that may not have existed on 9/11, or may not have existed even in the Lehman Brothers crash that you may have within your portfolio. But it gives us a way of talking about, on paper, what kind of stress would we experience during this time? And then, as an advisor, being able to communicate with the client, what happens if you held through this? Because if you look at some of those, I mean, everybody talks about the guarantees. There's no guarantees, right, except death and taxes. However, when we look back at certain events like Lehman Brothers or 9/11 or any other period of bear market turmoil, there's one other truth that happens is that we tend to recover. It's just a matter of how much time it takes for a recovery and at the pace of the recovery. So usually we have these declines. We usually have a period of recovery where we go on to, better days are ahead. Right. So we can have a conversation centered around what that portfolio is doing during this stressful event in the market. But let's remind ourselves, what are we doing? Where are we headed? Why do we have this portfolio in the first place?
What are the goals?
What are the goals?
Right.
Are you still going to be able to spend the money that you need to maintain the lifestyle that you want to continue to live based off of even this decline? Is the answer yes? If the answer is yes, then you're in a good position. If the answer is no, then what adjustments should we be making around the edges that can enhance the portfolio to get you to the place where you are able to continue to live the lifestyle that you want to live?
Oh, cool. Well, I know that you craft plans and you do lifetime income analysis. It seems that if somebody's in that third phase of life that you were talking about, somebody from 60 to 90, and they're in a bear market, that stress test is going to look a lot differently than somebody that's in that first phase, like somebody that are in their 20s or early 30s.
Right. That's right.
Okay. Well, cool. Well, I think we've thrown a lot at our viewers. I'd like to have you come back and we can talk about some other things, but this was a good introduction to what they should be thinking about, right?
Yeah.
If somebody had any questions of you, they want to ask you directly, how can they contact you?
Well, they can contact me directly by a telephone number. 626-773-4244 is my direct office number. They can also email me, and I can provide you with the email address, Campopiano, spelled Campopiano at dadco.com.
All right. Well, Michael, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate being here.
Okay, and thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.